Hello YouTube friends, welcome back. Thanks for joining me today. Firstly, I would like to thank you so very much for all the new subscriptions. I have thanked Noreen and I just want to thank her again for mentioning me in her video, which led so many of you to my channel. I really do appreciate you all subscribing, and I loved reading all the comments, and I hope you all got my replies to your comments, and I urge you to please continue writing to me. I always do put my private email address in the comment section, and if there's anything that's a little more private than you want to put into the comment section, please do write to me, and I'd love to chat to you and see if we can offer each other some comfort and hope at this time. I hope you've all managed to have a lovely Christmas, and I'm so sorry if you were alone. I couldn't help thinking about those who were alone on Christmas Day. And anyway, the day is over now, and let's hope next Christmas will be better for all of us. I'm going to read you another episode of my book, Life After Depression, today. And I'm going to pick up from chapter 10, which I've called Acceptance. I do hope you enjoy it, and if you're only seeing this video for the first time, then why don't you go back and read from episode 1, or I should say, listen from episode 1. And then you can catch up with my story. Here goes. Chapter 10, Acceptance. It takes a lot of courage to say out loud, I suffer from depression. And until you are able to do this, you will not start the healing process. The denial stage is a natural part of your healing process. But please recognize it for what it is. Part of the process, and this too will pass. With your acceptance of your condition comes the acceptance that you will always have to take medication. For those who have not suffered from an illness or condition that demands they take daily medication for the rest of their lives, they will wonder why this is such a hurdle to overcome. For some reason, us humans feel that if we are reliant on a drug, we're not doing the job properly ourselves, and that we're failing somehow. You will have to accept that the reason you are reliant on the drug is because something is missing from your chemical makeup and needs to be replaced artificially. Why is it nobler to admit that you're diabetic and even go so far as to administer your insulin in public? Why are women able to discuss their underactive thyroid in public and even compare medications? The reason is because, as evolved as we like to think we are, depression still carries the stigma attached to it that suggests the sufferer is actually a bit screwy, bonkers, crazy. The list goes on of words that are used for people who suffer with depression. No one will admit to thinking that, but it's true. So the sooner you realize that and stop taking offense at other people's ignorance of your condition, the sooner you will start to concentrate on yourself and your recovery, which, amongst other things, involves taking your medication like clockwork, having regular visits with your psychologist and your psychiatrist, and keeping positive, caring company. Yes, those you love the most could let you down. The friendships you treasure will prove to be built on sand, but always know that it's because so many do not understand depression. Those people who seem to be ignoring you actually don't know how to handle you. They don't know what to say to you. They feel inadequate in dealing with you. Yes, and some may feel you've just become hard work to be with. You will have to deal with all that, but know that as much as you are doing the best you can in this awful situation, so are those around you, even though it might not look that way at the time. Sorry, that sound that you're hearing in the background is the fan. It's so very hot here today. I continue. I suppose one of the reasons depression is misunderstood and seen as wallowing in self-pity is because so often the term is used too loosely. I have witnessed people saying glibly, "I feel so depressed today. I could slit my wrists," etc. Or my personal favorite, "I used to suffer from depression, but I just made up my mind to snap out of it." The truth is they have absolutely no idea what real depression feels like. A truly depressed person mostly doesn't tell anyone they are depressed at the time. They keep it to themselves, feeling as if the only person alive and suffering this way is them. Chapter 11. So, we're moving away from the poor Rose phase, but the black monster keeps turning up like an unwelcome visitor. Why had it chosen me so indiscriminately? Yes, I know that there are millions of people suffering from depression, and that I had not been specially chosen to suffer this way, but at that time I felt like the only person on the planet. So lonely, so very alone. I felt powerless to deal with the onslaught and completely vulnerable. At least I was beginning to be able to tell when it was going to happen. I realized today that being happy is standard for most people, unless of course they are going through some crisis in their lives. But most people take for granted when they wake up in the morning that they're looking forward to their day. I know now that it's not normal to feel constantly grateful for one's blessings. Yes, we do appreciate them, but we also learn to take them for granted, and that is normal human behavior. But even with all this analysis, the monster moved in anyway, determined to destroy everything in its path. It would take me down like a tsunami, moving in, causing havoc, crushing everything in its path, and draw back, leaving total destruction. Because by the time it moved off again, I had lost another few days with my children, said things to those dear to me that I couldn't take back, and spent even more days off work, supposedly sick. My life had become hell on earth. Every time after an episode, I would tell myself that at least the next time I would know how to handle it when I saw it coming. I even devised a plan for myself. I decided I would imagine myself on an imaginary waveboard, and all I had to do was hold on very tightly as the depression took me deep, deep, deep into the darkest area at the bottom of the swell. And if I just kept holding on, I knew that I would surface again. The trouble with that theory is it only works on the days when the sea is flat and calm. Every episode of depression felt like a new one, with new problems to overcome. I'd also recently started feeling abnormally high during the up times. I would experience feelings of excitement that were very hard to cope with, leaving me feeling anxious and shaky, and of course I always knew these feelings of enormous elation were going to give way to the opposite emotion. I never knew that this was just another symptom of depression. I was getting mentally and physically exhausted. I felt like I couldn't go on anymore. It would be so much easier just to stop the world and get off. This whole experience was much too hard for me. Chapter 12. This was when I first contemplated suicide. The thought of spending another day alive, coping with the family, coping with my job, coping with my constant feelings of hopelessness was just too daunting a prospect. I felt too tired to even talk to anyone about how I felt this time. I had to end it. One morning before work, after a sleepless night, I felt like I could not endure one more day. I'd felt like this often before, but this particular morning was absolutely overwhelming. I was just too tired. I could not cope with one more day of feeling this way. I decided that I would drive along the coastal road when I left for work instead of taking my usual route, and I would simply drive over the edge of the cliff at a particularly high point. I knew exactly where I would do it. My son was visiting from the UK at the time. I had 2 wonderful daughters, a husband, a grandson that I adored, apart from the rest of my family with whom I'm very close. I would cut off a limb rather than cause any of those dear people any pain. But at that moment, I never gave one of them a thought. I could think only about how tired I was, how so incredibly tired I was, too tired to think anymore, too tired to get through another day. I had to stop it somehow. It's a very dark memory for me, and I still don't know how I stopped myself. Maybe I was just too scared. I don't know. I thank God for getting me to work that day and so many days after that. This was a very scary time for me, not a time I want to dwell on, but also a time that needs remembering in order to be of any help to any others feeling this way. If I write this down, maybe one day it'll make sense to me. Maybe one day it'll help someone else to know that they are not alone in those thoughts. Maybe I can help someone to know this road has been walked many times before by many people just like me, who were also too tired to carry on with the day-to-day struggling of trying to live a normal life, trying to be a wife, trying to be a mother, trying to be a sister, trying to be a friend. I felt if only I could have stayed in bed forever, under the covers, behind closed doors, I could have coped. But life isn't like that, is it? It requires that you take part, even if you don't want to. I beg you, partners, friends, family, please don't judge someone for committing or attempting to commit suicide. Please don't judge them. I've often heard people say, how selfish, didn't he or she give a second thought to her children, her husband, his wife? Well, the truth is no. At the time you feel completely self-absorbed. No one else exists in your world. It is a closed, dark place with no way out. Rather than ridicule someone for committing suicide or attempting to, please always be on the lookout for someone who looks like they could do with a shoulder to cry on. Without labeling them needy, please take it seriously if someone says that they feel suicidal, feels like they can't go on. Often it will only be a cry for help or attention, but who are we to judge? We don't know. When those warning bells ring, listen to them and do something about it. Even if you're not qualified, find someone who is, but please help. But the chances are very strong that if you're reading this, you are a sufferer yourself and the one needing the help and the understanding. Please don't suffer alone. Please ask someone to help you. If you're embarrassed about what you're contemplating, speak to a stranger, but ask for help. I know you feel you're alone, but you're not. I promise you're not alone. There are millions of people like me and like you who have been there in that dark place and who've been saved and who are now living happy, yes, really happy, fulfilled lives. I know it feels like it'll never end, but it will, I promise you. Well, that is the end of episode 4, and I know it was really deep and dark and not the best listen ever, but it is what it is. That's what it was at the time, and that's why I'm sharing it with you, because I want you to know that if any of you are feeling that way, you really, really are not alone. Please reach out, even if it's to email me, to a stranger, to some sort of helpline. Reach out now and talk to somebody. Until episode 5, take care, be kind to yourselves, and thank you for joining me. Bye for now.